They called him the Tri-State Terror. I think after you hear his story, you're going to agree. So Wilbur started his life of crime young. He actually stole silverware from a neighbor. They weren't able to prove anything, so those charges were dropped. But shortly thereafter, he did get a burglary charge that led to some time at the Missouri State Penitentiary. After his release there, he was dubbed the Lover's Lane Bandit when he would go out to the Lover's Lane area out at Tanyard Hollow, just southwest of town, and he would rob the young couples who were parking of their belongings. He was actually caught during a sting operation by the police, who set up a car, and he picked the wrong car that night. I did want to include a picture or some video out there, but unfortunately there's tons of keep out, no trespassing, and private property signs, so I am going to attach a Google satellite view so you can kind of see where that Tanyard Hollow area is, out by Shoal Creek and Schifferdecker. On December 14th of 1922, a 21-year-old Wilbur Underhill robbed this gas station, which is now a coffee shop. He was quickly caught and returned to the Missouri State Penitentiary. Wilbur was paroled in late 26. On Christmas Day of that year, he and an accomplice went into a pharmacy in Oklahoma and robbed the place. During the process, they shot and killed the 19-year-old employee. Although the criminals made their escape that day, they were caught just a couple weeks later on January 7th, 1927. But they wouldn't stay in jail for even the entire month. On January 30th, using some smuggled hacksaw blades, they were able to actually cut their way out of the prison bars and make their escape. The accomplice was captured again on February 9th in Lamar, Missouri. He, 3 days later, tried to escape again, and he was killed. Just a few short days after the death of his accomplice, Wilbur went into a theater in Pitcher, Oklahoma, and robbed them of $52. He was confronted by the town constable. At that time, he reached for the constable's gun, took it, and shot and killed a deputized citizen. Wilbur was then caught in March of that year, and then sentenced in June to a life sentence for the murder of George Fee. Wilbur made several attempts to escape from the Oklahoma State Penitentiary before finally being successful in 1931. 12 days after his escape, using the name Ralph Carraway, Underhill purchased a vehicle in Cherryvale, Kansas. He also that afternoon robbed a theater for $300. Just a short time later, he recruited his nephew Frank, and they went to Wichita, Kansas. On August 12th, they robbed a Wichita gas station for $14.68. Just a short distance from that robbery, Wilbur actually crashed the car, and the damages required repair. So they had to find a hotel to stay at while the repairs were being completed. The next morning, the patrolman assigned to check on suspicious hotel guest, Merrill Culver, showed up at Wilbur's room. While knocking on the door, Wilbur opens the door and opens fire, shooting the patrolman 3 times in the head, killing him instantly. Fleeing on foot, Wilbur becomes involved in a running gunfight. During this gunfight, a 2-year-old boy was killed in the crossfire. Wilbur would eventually be stopped due to a lucky shot to the neck, and actually took off the top of his left ear. Wilbur was convicted for the murder and given another life sentence and sent back to the prison on September 4th, 1931. Frank, on the other hand, was not charged, and as the story goes, he was scared straight and never committed another crime for the rest of his life. Once in the prison, Wilbur finds a group of gentlemen, term used very loosely, who shared the same hobbies as Wilbur. One of these gentlemen was Harvey Bailey. You might remember we spoke about Harvey a couple weeks ago, the dean of bank robbers. Harvey and 10 other men, one of those being Wilbur, escaped from the prison and went on a 6-month crime spree. The gang was actually called the Wilbur Underhill Gang. After Harvey was captured in Texas, Wilbur took charge of the gang. Shortly after Harvey's arrest, the Underhill gang made their way here to Baxter Springs, Kansas, where they robbed the American Bank for $3,000. Over the next couple days, the gang made their way here to Galena for a bank robbery, then down into Arkansas, and then finally over to Oklahoma. At one point, Wilbur was so brazen that he actually walked into a courthouse to apply for a marriage license under his own name during the middle of the manhunt. On December 26, 1933, law enforcement was able to track Wilbur, his wife Hazel, Ralph Rowe, and his girlfriend Eva Nichols to a house in Shawnee, Oklahoma. At 2 a.m. on that cold, foggy morning, police surrounded the building. Police, law enforcement, highway patrol. They saw a window with a faint light, and they worked their way up to the window. When they looked in, what they saw was Wilbur in his long underwear and his wife in her bedclothes. A neighborhood dog started barking. This got Wilbur's attention. So Wilbur made his way to the window, and when he got close, he made eye contact with law enforcement. They yelled in, told him to surrender and come out. He yelled back, okay, but instead of doing that, he actually turned to grab a gun. One of the federal agents fired a gas canister into the room through the window, shattering the glass and actually hitting Wilbur in the stomach, knocking him to the ground. The other law enforcement officer opened fire, shooting into the window. On the other side of the building, thinking there was a gunfight, the other law enforcement also started shooting through the walls and the windows. During this time, walls were getting shredded, glass was getting shattered. Rowe and Nichols were in bed in another room, and Rowe actually got hit a couple times getting out of bed. Nichols was also hit several times. During the gunfight in the back of the house, Wilbur comes out the front porch, bursts through the door. Gunfire hits him again, and he falls face first into the mud. Assuming that he's going to just lay there, the shooting stops. As they approach, Wilbur hops up, bloodied, barefoot, in his long underwear, and takes off into the night. A little bit later, Rowe and Eva Nichols come out, bloodied. Hazel comes out, uninjured, but scared. Rowe and Nichols were taken to the local hospital where they were treated for their injuries. Nichols would eventually die from the bullet wounds that she received. Rowe would find himself in Alcatraz, where he was actually one of the first 2 people to attempt an escape. They never found the bodies, but it is assumed that they were lost at sea. Officers tracked Wilbur through the night, eventually bringing in the canines to track the blood scent. They were able to follow him quite a distance whenever an officer pulled up and said, "Hey, I believe we found Wilbur at a furniture shop." When the officers got to the furniture shop, they kicked the door in and found Wilbur laying on a blood-soaked bed with his pistol next to him. When they looked, they said, "Boy, you're in a bad way." He said, "Yeah, I got hit 5 times. I was counting the slugs as they hit." He'd been hit in the head, the arms, the legs, the torso. Yet he was still able to make it 16 blocks to this furniture shop. Wilbur was taken to the hospital, the same hospital that Nichols and Rowe were at. It is said that on the ambulance ride over, multiple times he was begging for them to slow down because of the pain and the fear that he was going to fall off of the stretcher. Police on the scene searched the area and found multiple pieces of weaponry, as well as some items stolen from some of the bank robberies. Wilbur was returned to the prison on January 6, 1934. Still suffering from the injuries, he was taken to the prison infirmary, where he barely made it a day before dying. His death actually marks the first person to be killed by what would later become the FBI. After a funeral at the Byers Avenue United Methodist Church, reportedly attended by upwards around 1,600 people, Wilbur's body was brought here to the Ozark Memorial Park Cemetery in Joplin, where he was laid to rest. You'll notice on the headstone that Wilbur's name is spelled W-I-L-B-E-R. This is the way it was spelled at birth, but whenever Wilbur got a little older, he changed out the E for a U, W-I-L-B-U-R. He thought this looked more masculine. Wow, what a crazy story for sure. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hopefully you learned a little something. And if you liked what you saw, as I love to say, and you feel so compelled, please click that like button. If you think this is something somebody that you know or one of your friends would love to see as well, please feel free to share. I would love to just let everyone know about Wilbur Underhill and his connection to Joplin, Missouri. Thank you again so much for watching. Have a great day.